When a city cuts $75,000 from its recreation budget, it looks like responsible governance. The numbers balance, the deficit shrinks. But what if that saving quietly reappears in the police budget, the health system, or a six-figure facility repair 5 years later? The real question isn't whether we saved money, it's whether we just moved the bill. When cities face budget deficits, recreation is often one of the first departments on the chopping block. Programs get reduced, seasonal staff aren't rehired, and maintenance is deferred. On paper, it looks like a clean, responsible win for the taxpayer. But the real question is this: are we actually saving money or just shifting the bill somewhere else? Today, I want to explore the long-term financial impacts of cutting recreation. Municipal budgets operate on annual cycles, and in a genuine fiscal shortfall, elected officials often have to prioritize balancing this year's ledger over modeling impacts 5 years out. If a city reduces its recreation spending by $75,000 this fiscal year, it's a visible line item reduction. But in municipal accounting, a saving in one department is often just a cost shift to another. This matters if recreation functions as preventative infrastructure rather than simple consumption. In that case, a $75,000 cut doesn't just reduce spending, it redistributes risk across the city's ledger. We see it in the public safety shift, where the money saved on an after-school program is quickly absorbed by a police budget responding to unsupervised juvenile calls. We see it in the health shift, where reduced access to maintained trails contributes to higher rates of sedentary illness that public health systems eventually absorb. And we see it in the infrastructure shift, the beginning of a very expensive decay cycle. On paper, the cut looks efficient. In reality, it's a high-interest loan against the city's future. You don't see the conflict that didn't happen. You only see the bill when it arrives somewhere else. Recreation departments aren't hospitals, but they are primary providers of the built environment that keeps people out of them. The Trust for Public Land has extensively documented this in its research on the economic benefits of parks and green space. Their analysis suggests that investments can yield multi-to-one returns. Essentially, when a city provides a safe place to be active, it creates a measurable health dividend. When recreation access declines, rates of physical inactivity tend to rise, and chronic disease risks increase over time. Those costs don't just vanish, they're absorbed by the broader community. To be clear, most of this research shows strong association rather than direct causation. But weakening preventative infrastructure consistently increases long-term risk exposure. By looking at recreation as a health utility, we realize that every dollar cut from a park budget is a dollar we are essentially asking the healthcare system to pay back with interest. And when it comes to youth, research frequently cited by the Afterschool Alliance notes that juvenile crime and risky behavior are more likely to occur in the hours immediately following school dismissal. Structured, supervised recreation programs are designed to fill that gap and are associated with measurable returns on investment by reducing delinquency and improving workforce participation. When those programs disappear, the costs of disengagement begin to compound. Research aggregated by the Urban Institute has found that high-quality prevention programs can yield significant return on investment, in some cases, returning up to $9 or even $10 for every dollar invested. These aren't just social gains, they're fiscal ones, measured in reduced justice system involvement and a more productive future workforce. The savings aren't immediate, but the long-term economic benefit of keeping a generation engaged is undeniable. Now let's talk about deferred maintenance, because this is where the math becomes difficult to ignore. In infrastructure economics, there's a guiding principle often referred to as the rule of 1-5-10. The basic idea, echoed in reports like the National Research Council's Committing to Cost of Ownership, is that deferred maintenance compounds. Spending $1 on routine prevention today can save $5 in corrective repairs tomorrow. If those repairs are delayed long enough, you may eventually face $10 in full replacement costs. In other words, when we skip a $7,500 maintenance task today, we aren't saving that money. We may ultimately face a far larger reconstruction cost down the road. In this sense, budget cuts don't eliminate cost. They just restructure it into a much larger, much more painful bill for the next generation of taxpayers. I want to now talk about parks from a broader economic sense. Research on the Proximate Principle suggests that properties adjacent to high-quality parks can see value increased that are often significant, in some studies around 20%. That park premium translates directly into higher property tax revenue for the city. Of course, that premium depends heavily on park quality, safety, and neighborhood context. It isn't automatic. When recreation systems decline, surrounding property values may stagnate relative to comparable areas. The tax base erodes, and the community attractiveness that draws in new businesses begins to wither. In short, recreation rarely appears in economic development headlines, but it quietly underwrites many of the outcomes cities say they value. Public funds require accountability, and recreation shouldn't be immune from scrutiny. And this isn't an argument that recreation should never be cut, only that those decisions deserve full lifecycle cost awareness before they're made. Because once we widen the lens beyond a single fiscal year, the framing changes. The question isn't how much does recreation cost? The better question is, what costs are we currently preventing? If recreation functions as preventative infrastructure, then short-term cuts may create long-term liabilities. And those liabilities don't disappear, they shift. So when we ask whether cutting recreation saves money, the answer depends entirely on how far into the future we're willing to look. This is Recreation Matters. If you found this content useful, please like the video to help us reach more people, and subscribe as we continue exploring how recreation works, where it's overlooked, and why it matters.